The champagne cork hit my office ceiling at exactly 3:11 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I genuinely believed it was the best moment of my life. Regional director at 34 years old, 10 years of 60-hour weeks, missed dinners, and sacrificed weekends had finally paid off. I couldn't wait to tell Emily. I called her 3 times from the parking garage, straight to voicemail. That wasn't unusual. She taught yoga classes most afternoons and kept her phone in her locker. I figured I'd surprise her at home with the news and maybe reservations at that Italian place downtown she'd been mentioning for months. The house was quiet when I pulled into our driveway in Wilmington, Delaware at 3:30. Emily's white Honda sat in its usual spot, which struck me as odd. She should have been at the studio until 5. Maybe she'd canceled her classes. Maybe she wasn't feeling well. I grabbed my briefcase and the bottle of Moet I'd snagged from the office celebration, practically floating up the front steps of our modest colonial. We'd bought it 4 years ago, right after the wedding. Emily had spent months painting the shutters that perfect shade of sage green, planting hydrangeas along the walkway. Our home. Our future. The front door was unlocked. Also unusual, but Emily had been distracted lately. Stressed about her mother's health issues, she'd said. I'd been so wrapped up in the promotion chase that I hadn't pressed for details. "Em, you home?" I called out, setting my briefcase on the entry table. No answer. But I heard something. A rhythmic creaking from upstairs. My first thought was that something was wrong with the ceiling fan in our bedroom. It had been making weird noises for weeks. I'd promised to fix it but kept putting it off. I headed for the stairs, loosening my tie. The creaking got louder. And then I heard it. A sound that made my hand freeze on the banister. A moan. Female. Definitely Emily's voice. My brain scrambled for innocent explanations. She was working out. She'd hurt herself. She was watching something on her laptop. The rational part of me was already constructing these flimsy defenses even as my legs carried me up the stairs, even as other sounds filtered through our bedroom door. A deeper voice. Male, grunting. My hand touched the doorknob. Some part of me was screaming to stop, to turn around, to preserve whatever existed on the other side of this door. But my fingers turned it anyway. The door swung open. Our bedroom. The one with the cream-colored walls Emily had insisted on. The antique dresser we'd found at that estate sale in Pennsylvania. The bed we'd picked out together at that furniture warehouse, laughing about how we'd grow old in it together. Emily was on that bed. On top of someone. Her yoga instructor body moving in ways I'd almost forgotten she could move. The man beneath her had his hands on her hips, guiding her. Neither of them had noticed me yet. The champagne bottle slipped from my fingers and hit the hardwood floor with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. Emily's head whipped around. Her face went from flushed pleasure to white terror in less than a second. She scrambled off the man, grabbing for the sheet, her mouth forming words that wouldn't come out. The man sat up. I recognized him immediately. Tyler Bennett. My college roommate. The guy who'd been my best man. The one who'd given that touching speech at our wedding about how Emily and I were meant to be, and how he'd never seen two people more perfect for each other. He'd been staying in our guest room for the past 3 weeks. Going through a rough divorce, he'd said. Needed a place to crash while he got back on his feet. Emily had suggested it. I'd agreed immediately because that's what you did for your best friend. "Jake," Emily started. "Get out." My voice sounded strange, calm, distant, like it was coming from someone else's body. "Jake, please, let me explain." She was crying now, clutching the sheet to her chest. "Get out." I looked at Tyler. He was frozen, his face a mixture of guilt and something else. Fear, maybe. "Both of you. Now." Tyler moved first, grabbing his clothes from the floor. He didn't look at me as he dressed, fumbling with his jeans. Emily sat on the bed, sobbing, making no move to leave. "This isn't what you think," she said. I laughed. Actually laughed. You're right. I think I walked in on my wife sleeping with my best friend in our bed. But clearly I'm mistaken. We didn't mean for this to happen. How long? The question came out before I could stop it. Part of me didn't want to know. The other part needed to know everything. She hesitated. That hesitation told me more than words could. How long? 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year. While I'd been working late, chasing this promotion to give us a better life, to start the family we'd been planning. 6 months of lies. Of coming home to her kisses, her asking about my day, her sleeping beside me in this bed. Tyler was dressed now, edging toward the door. I stepped aside to let him pass. He paused. Jake, if you're still in my house in 30 seconds, I'm calling the police. He ran. I heard his footsteps thundering down the stairs, the front door slamming. Emily was still on the bed, still crying. Please, Jake, please let me explain. I love you. I made a mistake. It's over now, I swear. Pack a bag, I said. You have 10 minutes. Where am I supposed to go? I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd loved since we met at that coffee shop 7 years ago. The woman who'd promised to love and cherish me, in sickness and health, for better or worse. I genuinely don't care, I said. The door closed behind Emily with a soft click that seemed too quiet for the moment. I stood in the living room, still holding my phone, staring at the space where she'd been standing 30 seconds earlier. The house felt different already. Emptier. Not in a sad way, in a relieved way, like lancing an infected wound. I needed to move. Do something. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation was curdling into something jittery and unfocused. I walked upstairs past the guest room where Tyler had been sleeping, where he'd probably been laughing at me every morning over coffee, and into our bedroom. Former bedroom. The sheets were still tangled from where I'd found them. I stripped the bed methodically, yanking off the duvet cover, the sheets, the pillowcases, carried the whole mess downstairs and shoved it into the garbage can in the garage. The mattress could go too, eventually. I'd sleep on the couch until I could arrange for a new one. Back inside, I finally looked at my phone. 3 missed calls from Emily already, 2 voicemails. I deleted them without listening. What I needed was a lawyer, and probably a drink, but the lawyer first. I was Googling divorce attorney Wilmington when someone knocked on the front door. My stomach dropped. Emily, probably, having forgotten something or ready to try another round of apologies and excuses. I pulled the door open, already forming the words to tell her to leave. The man standing on my porch wasn't Emily. He was maybe 50, average height, wearing khakis and a polo shirt that strained slightly across his middle. Thinning brown hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and an expression that somehow managed to be both apologetic and determined. Jake Reeves? He asked. Yeah. My name is Dennis Kowalski. He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. I'm sorry to bother you at home. I tried calling a few times, but I kept getting voicemail. I didn't recognize the name. What's this about? It's about money your wife owes me. He said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. $28,000. I stared at him. What? I know this is awkward. Dennis pulled a folded stack of papers from his back pocket, but I've been trying to reach Emily for 3 months, and she keeps putting me off. I wouldn't normally show up like this, but I'm running out of options. My brain was still stuck on the number. $28,000. I think there's been some kind of mistake. Emily doesn't. We don't owe anyone money. These are the loan documents. He held them out. She signed them. I have copies of the bank transfers, too. I took the papers, unfolding them with hands that felt numb. The top sheet was a promissory note dated 14 months ago. Emily's signature was right there at the bottom, along with Dennis Kowalski's. This doesn't make any sense, I said, scanning the document. Why would my wife borrow money from you? She told me it was for home renovations, said you were redoing the kitchen and the contractor needed payment up front. Dennis rubbed the back of his neck. We work together, I should say, at the yoga studio. I teach the meditation classes. The yoga studio, where Emily worked 4 days a week, teaching morning and evening sessions. She said you'd pay me back within 6 months, Dennis continued. When the first payment was late, she apologized, said there were complications with the renovation. Then it was her mother's medical bills. Then it was your job situation being uncertain. He looked genuinely pained. I liked Emily, trusted her. But it's been over a year now and I need that money. My daughter's starting college in the fall. I was still reading the promissory note. The terms were clear. $28,000 to be repaid within 6 months with 5% interest. Emily's signature. Today's date would put us 8 months past due. We never renovated the kitchen, I said slowly. And Emily's mother is fine. She went on a cruise last month. Dennis's face fell. Oh. And my job? I laughed, a short, bitter sound. I just got promoted. Today, actually. We stood there in awkward silence. Mr. Kowalski, I said finally. I'm going to be honest with you. I had no idea about this loan. None. And based on what I've learned about my wife in the last 2 hours, I'm guessing the money didn't go toward anything she told you it would. 2 hours. I came home early to share the good news about my promotion. Found her in bed with my best friend. Jesus. Dennis looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. This is terrible timing. Actually, your timing is perfect. I studied the promissory note again. Do you have those bank transfer records with you? He did. Pulled them from the same pocket, handed them over. 3 transfers, spread across 2 months. 10,000, then 10,000, then 8,000. All to Emily's personal checking account, the one she'd opened a few years ago for her yoga business expenses. I'm going to need copies of all of this, I said, and I'm going to find out where that money went. If you want to get paid back, you'll probably need to sue her. We're getting divorced. Dennis winced. I hate to add to your troubles. You're not adding to them. You're documenting them. I pulled out my phone. Give me your email. I'll send you my lawyer's information once I have one. After Dennis left, I sat at the kitchen table with the loan documents spread in front of me. $28,000. Gone. To where? I logged into our joint bank account on my laptop, the account we used for household expenses, mortgage payments, utilities. Emily's yoga income went into her personal account, and she transferred a set amount each month to cover her share of the bills. Except now I was looking at those transfers with new eyes. Her contributions had been consistent, right on schedule, which meant the $28,000 hadn't gone toward our shared expenses. I needed access to her personal account. I didn't have her login credentials, but I knew Emily's password habits. She used variations of the same basic pattern for everything, a word plus her birth year plus a special character. Her email password was Sunshine88. Her Amazon account was Moonlight88 Her bank account login was her email address. I tried Namaste88 first. Invalid. Lotus88. Invalid. Breathe88. The screen loaded. I was in. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the account summary. Then I started scrolling through the transactions. The 3 deposits from Dennis Kowalski were easy to spot. $10,000 on March 15th of last year. Another $10,000 on April 3rd. $8,000 on April 29th. The money had started flowing out immediately. Rent payments. $1,500 a month to Riverside Luxury Apartments, a complex on the north side of town. The payment started in March of last year and continued every month through last week. Car payments. $540 a month to a Lexus dealership in Pennsylvania. Starting in April. Restaurant charges. Premium grocery stores. A jewelry purchase for $1,800. Airline tickets to Miami in January, to Cabo in March. I sat back, the numbers swimming in front of my eyes. Emily hadn't borrowed money for home renovations or medical bills or anything legitimate. She'd borrowed money to finance someone else's entire life. Tyler's life. The apartment lease started right around when Tyler claimed his divorce began. The car payments matched the timeline. The vacations lined up with weekends when Emily had told me she was visiting her mother or attending yoga workshops. She'd set him up. Used Dennis Kowalski's money to rent Tyler an apartment, buy him a car, take him on trips. All while living here with me, sleeping in our bed, kissing me goodbye every morning. My phone buzzed. Another call from Emily. I declined it. Then I took screenshots of everything. Every transaction, every deposit, every payment. Saved them to a folder on my laptop and backed them up to the cloud. When I finally looked up from the computer, it was past 9 o'clock. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. I hadn't eaten since the sandwich at my desk around noon, but I wasn't hungry. I was something else entirely. For 10 years, I'd worked myself half to death building a career. Building a future. For us, I'd thought. For the life we were going to have together. And while I was putting in 60-hour weeks, Emily was using a colleague's retirement savings to play house with Tyler Bennett. My phone rang again. Not Emily this time, an unknown number. I answered. Yeah. Jake? Tyler's voice. Man, we need to talk. I almost hung up, but something made me stay on the line. Talk, I said. I stared at Emily's bank statement, my eyes tracking the same transactions I'd already memorized. March 15th. The first payment to Riverside Luxury Apartments. 14 months ago. Not 6. My phone buzzed again. Tyler's 5th call in the last hour. I let it go to voicemail like the others. The front door opened. I'd forgotten to lock it after Dennis left. Jake? Emily's voice, tentative. Your car's still here. Can we please talk? I didn't move from the kitchen table, just waited. She appeared in the doorway, changed into jeans and a sweater. Her eyes were red, makeup smudged. She'd been crying in her car somewhere, working up the courage to come back. You need to leave, I said. I know you're angry. Emily. I turned the laptop screen toward her. When did it actually start? She went pale, took a step back. The affair with Tyler, I continued, my voice flat. You told me 6 months, but you've been paying his rent since March of last year, 14 months ago. Jake, I can explain. Was he even getting divorced? Silence. Was he? I asked again. They were separated. Her voice barely audible. That's not what I asked. She wrapped her arms around herself. The divorce papers were filed in January, last year. I laughed. Actually laughed. So you started sleeping with him 2 months after he filed, while he was living with his wife. And then you moved him into an apartment and paid for everything. It wasn't like that? What was it like, Emily? Help me understand how you borrowed $28,000 from a man I've never heard of, lied about where the money went, and financed your boyfriend's entire life while I worked 60-hour weeks. He needed help. His wife took everything in the separation. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I don't care about Tyler's problems. I care that you committed fraud. Multiple counts, probably. Her face changed, fear replacing guilt. What? You borrowed money under false pretenses. That's fraud. You told Dennis it was for home renovations and your mother's medical bills. Both lies. You used it to support another man. I'll pay him back. With what money? I gestured at the laptop. You've got maybe $3,000 in your account. You owe Dennis $28,000. And I'm guessing Tyler's not going to chip in from his construction job that apparently doesn't pay enough for rent or car payments. She sank into the chair across from me. I made a mistake. 14 months of mistakes. 14 months of lying to my face every single day. Coming home to our bed after being with him. I paused. Did you ever use our bed? Or just his apartment? She flinched. Answer me. Both, she whispered. I felt nothing. That scared me more than anger would have. Just this vast, empty space where 4 years of marriage used to be. Get out, I said. I want you out of this house by tomorrow. Take your clothes, your car, whatever you brought into this marriage. Everything else stays. Jake, please. I'm filing for divorce. Tomorrow. And I'm going to make sure Dennis knows exactly where his money went. What you do about that is your problem. You can't just, I can. This is my house. My name on the deed. You want to argue about it? Call a lawyer. She stood up, shaking. I never meant to hurt you. You meant every single choice you made, every lie. Every time you took money we could have used for our future and gave it to him instead. I closed the laptop. Now get out before I call the police and have you removed. She left without another word. I sat in the silence, listening to her car start, then fade down the street. The house felt different now. Contaminated. Every room held some memory that had curdled into poison. My phone buzzed. Tyler again. This time I answered. Jake, thank God. What do you want? I need to explain. Emily said you found out about the money. You mean the $28,000 she borrowed to pay for your apartment and car? That money? Silence on his end. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to stay away from me, away from Emily, and you're going to figure out how to pay Dennis Kowalski back every cent Emily spent on you. I don't have that kind of money. Then get it. Sell the Lexus she bought you. Break your lease. I don't care. But Dennis is a concrete contractor who knows where you work, and when he figures out you were the reason his loan disappeared, you're going to wish you'd handled this voluntarily. You can't just watch me. And Tyler? If you ever contact me again, I'm forwarding all of Emily's bank statements to your ex-wife's divorce attorney. I'm sure she'd love to know about the luxury apartment and car payments that mysteriously appeared while you were crying poverty in court. I hung up. The satisfaction lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then it was just me, alone in a house that didn't feel like home anymore, with a promotion I'd worked 10 years to earn and nobody to celebrate with. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Reeves? This is Patricia Lawson. I'm an attorney. Emily called me about 30 minutes ago, said you're threatening to kick her out of the marital home. I'm not threatening. I'm telling her to leave. There's a difference. Mr. Reeves, regardless of whose name is on the deed, this is the marital residence. You can't forcibly remove your wife without a court order. She can stay at the apartment she's been paying for, the one she rented for her boyfriend. Pause. What? Emily didn't mention that part? She's been having an affair for over a year. Used borrowed money to pay for his apartment, his car, their vacations, all while living here rent-free. I'll need to speak with my client. Her tone had shifted. Professional distance replacing advocacy. You do that, and tell her she's got until tomorrow at 5 p.m. to get her personal belongings. After that, I'm changing the locks. Mr. Reeves, I strongly advise you to retain counsel before taking any action. Already planning on it. First thing tomorrow morning. I hung up. The kitchen clock read 8:47 p.m. 6 hours since I'd walked through my front door expecting to celebrate. 6 hours since my entire life had detonated. I opened my laptop again, started a new document, began listing everything I could remember. Dates, amounts, transactions, Dennis's visit, the bank statements, Tyler's calls, Emily's admissions, Patricia Lawson's call. Document everything. That's what my father always said. He'd been a paralegal for 30 years before he retired. Paper trail beats memory every time, Jake. Write it down while it's fresh. I typed until my eyes burned. Until the document was 15 pages of single-space details. Times, quotes, observations, everything. At 10:23 p.m., I finally stopped. Saved the file. Backed it up to 3 different locations. Then I walked upstairs to the guest room, Tyler's room for the past 3 weeks, and stripped the bed. Carried the sheets downstairs and threw them in the trash. Did the same with the towels from the guest bathroom. Our bedroom was next. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, then walked to Emily's side of the bed. Pulled off her pillow, her blanket, added them to the trash pile. The antique dresser we'd found at that estate sale. I opened her drawers, started pulling out clothes. Folded them mechanically, stacked them in garbage bags. All of it. Every piece of clothing, every shoe, every accessory. By midnight, I had 10 bags lined up in the hallway. The bed itself, our wedding bed, I couldn't deal with tonight. Tomorrow. I'd handle it tomorrow. I grabbed a pillow from the linen closet, went downstairs to the couch. Lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Dennis." Emily called. Said she'll pay me back $500 a month. That's 56 months. Almost 5 years. I don't have 5 years. We need to talk. I stared at the message. $500 a month. On her yoga instructor's salary, after rent and expenses, she'd never make it past 3 months. I typed back, "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., my address. Bring any documentation you have." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Okay, I set the phone down. Closed my eyes. Tomorrow I'd find a divorce attorney. Tomorrow I'd figure out what to do about Dennis, about Emily's fraud, about all of it. Tonight, I just needed to make it to morning. I stared at the spreadsheet on my laptop screen until the numbers blurred. The living room had grown dark around me, but I hadn't bothered turning on the lights. My phone showed 9:47 p.m. Emily had called 16 times. I'd sent every call to voicemail. The front door lock rattled. I'd changed it 4 hours ago, called a 24-hour locksmith and paid double for immediate service. Worth every penny to watch Emily's key fail to turn in the cylinder. "Jake!" Her voice came through the door, muffled but frantic. "Jake, please, I need to get my things. I need clothes for work tomorrow." I didn't move. "Jake, I know you're in there. Your car's in the driveway." A pause. "Please. We need to talk about this." Talk. As if words could somehow rearrange reality, make the bank statements show different numbers, rewrite 14 months of lies. I pulled up my email and started typing. To emily.reeves.yogaeggmail.com. Subject, your belongings. Emily. I will pack your essential items and leave them on the porch tomorrow at 6 p.m. You have 1 hour to collect them. Do not knock, do not call, do not attempt to enter the house. All further communication goes through attorneys. Jake. I hit send. 30 seconds later, her phone chimed on the other side of the door. The pounding stopped. I heard her say something I couldn't make out, then footsteps retreating down the porch stairs. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother Kevin. "Mom's asking questions. What should I tell her?" I'd called Kevin from the locksmith's parking lot, given him the abbreviated version. He'd listened without interrupting, then said, "Stay at my place. Guest room's yours as long as you need it." I'd declined. This was my house. I'd made the down payment with money I'd saved before we even met. My name was first on the mortgage. Emily could find somewhere else to sleep. "Tell her I'll call this weekend," I typed back. "Need a few days." The cursor blinked on the spreadsheet. I'd created a second tab, this one tracking my own finances. Separate accounts, thankfully. We'd kept our banking independent except for one joint account for household expenses. Emily contributed $600 monthly to that account. I covered the remaining $2,800 for mortgage, utilities, insurance, everything else. My salary had made that arrangement feel reasonable. She was building her yoga business. I was climbing the corporate ladder. We were partners. Partners. I laughed, the sound harsh in the empty room. My phone rang. Not Emily this time, a number I didn't recognize, local area code. Hello? Is this Jake Reeves? A woman's voice, professional but uncertain. Speaking. My name is Vanessa Price. This is awkward. I'm Tyler Bennett's ex-wife. I sat up straight. Go on. Tyler and I finalized our divorce 8 months ago. I just found out he's been telling people we're still going through proceedings. She paused. And I heard through a mutual friend that he's been staying with you and your wife. Was staying. Not anymore. Right? Well? Another pause. Look, I don't know what Tyler told you about our divorce, but I'm guessing it was a sob story about how I took him to the cleaners or something. He mentioned it was rough. Vanessa laughed, bitter and sharp. Rough for him, maybe. We had a prenup. He walked away with exactly what he brought into the marriage, which was basically his car and his student loans. No alimony, no settlement. Clean break. The pieces clicked into place. So when he moved out 8 months ago, he had no money. He'd been living beyond his means our entire marriage, running up credit cards I knew nothing about. The divorce forced everything into the light. Last I heard, he was crashing with some friend from college. That would be me. I'm sorry, she sounded genuine. I'm calling because our divorce attorney just contacted me. Apparently Tyler's trying to reopen the case, claiming I hid assets. It's garbage. We had nothing to hide. But his attorney mentioned evidence of a significant improvement in his lifestyle during our separation period. I closed my eyes. Let me guess. Nice apartment, new car lease, expensive trips. Exactly. His attorney's arguing that I must have been hiding money if he could afford all that while we were still married. It's absurd, but I have to respond, which means more legal fees I can't afford. Her voice hardened. I need to know where he got that money. My wife. The words tasted like ash. She took out a personal loan and funded his entire life, $28,000 over 14 months. Silence on the line. Then, Jesus Christ. I found out today, all of it, the affair, the money, everything. I'm sorry, Vanessa said again. I'm really sorry. The loan came from a colleague of hers. He's demanding repayment. She doesn't have it. Of course she doesn't. Vanessa's tone shifted, became businesslike. Listen, I need documentation, bank statements, anything showing the money trail from your wife to Tyler. My attorney can use it to prove the improved lifestyle had nothing to do with hidden marital assets. I'll send you what I have, but I need something in return. Name it. When your attorney deposes Tyler about where the money came from, I want to know everything he says. Every detail. Done. Email me at vprice.consulting@gmail.com. And Jake? Take him for everything. Men like Tyler, they don't stop. They just find new people to use. She hung up. I forwarded her the screenshots from Emily's bank account, the spreadsheet I'd built, everything. Then I opened a new document and started a timeline. 14 months ago, affair begins. Emily takes $28,000 loan from Dennis. 8 months ago, Tyler's divorce finalizes. He moves into apartment Emily's financing. 3 weeks ago, Tyler moves into our guest room, claims ongoing divorce proceedings. Today, discovery. The guest room. I climbed the stairs, flipped on the light. Tyler had cleared out fast. No clothes in the closet, bathroom counter empty. But he'd left small traces. A phone charger on the nightstand. A paperback thriller on the dresser. A receipt tucked into the trash can. I pulled out the receipt. Dinner at Marcello's, an Italian place downtown. 3 weeks ago, 2 days before Tyler showed up at our door. $127.43 for 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, dessert. The same night Emily told me she was having dinner with her sister. I photographed the receipt and added it to a folder on my laptop labeled Evidence. My phone buzzed. Kevin. Seriously, come stay here. Lauren's worried about you. I'm fine, I typed. Need to handle some things. What I needed was a lawyer. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. I opened my laptop browser and searched for divorce attorneys in Wilmington. Most offices were closed, but one firm had an emergency consultation line. A paralegal answered on the third ring. Brennan Family Law, emergency line. I need to speak with an attorney about filing for divorce, tonight if possible. Let me check availability. Can you hold? Elevator music filled my ear. I walked to the bedroom window, looked out at the street. Emily's car was gone, probably parked at Tyler's luxury apartment, the one she'd paid for while I worked 60-hour weeks. Sir, Attorney Brennan can see you at 10:30 tonight if you can come to the office. It's a $500 emergency consultation fee. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I grabbed my laptop, the folder of printed bank statements, the receipt from Marcello's, locked the front door behind me and set the alarm. Let Emily try to get in now. The law office occupied the third floor of a building downtown. Attorney Brennan turned out to be a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes behind frameless glasses. Mr. Reeves. She shook my hand, gestured to a chair. You said this was urgent. I laid out the timeline, showed her the evidence. She took notes on a legal pad, her expression neutral. And you discovered all this today? She asked. 6 hours ago. Have you confronted your wife? Briefly, she admitted to a 6-month affair. I found evidence of 14 months. Attorney Brennan tapped her pen against the pad. Delaware is a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity can impact property division and alimony. The financial fraud, spending marital assets on an affair partner, that's significant. She looked up. What are you hoping to achieve? I want her to get nothing, and I want her to repay that $28,000 to Dennis Kowalski. The personal loan was in her name only? Yes. Then that's her debt, not yours. The court won't make you responsible for it. She flipped through my documents. Your income is substantially higher than hers. Normally that might mean alimony, but given the circumstances, the fraud, the affair, we can argue against it. Did she contribute to your career advancement in any significant way? I thought about the late nights, the business trips, the weekends I spent preparing presentations. Emily had been there, sure, making dinner sometimes, offering encouragement. But she'd also been financing another man's life with borrowed money. No, I said. She didn't. Attorney Brennan nodded. I'll need a $5,000 retainer to start. We'll file tomorrow, request temporary orders securing all marital assets. I'll also subpoena her bank records, all of them. I pulled out my credit card. Do it. The phone call with Vanessa ended at 4:47 p.m. I sat in my car outside the coffee shop, staring at the dashboard clock as the numbers clicked forward. Vanessa had promised to send over Tyler's financial disclosures from the divorce, the ones showing he'd claimed poverty just months before Emily started bankrolling his lifestyle. My phone buzzed. Attorney Brennan. Jake, we need to talk about Dennis Kowalski. I pressed the phone harder against my ear. What about him? He called my office an hour ago, threatened to file a lawsuit against both you and Emily if he doesn't get his money back within 30 days. Brennan's voice carried a warning edge. He's claiming you're liable as her spouse. That's insane. I didn't borrow the money. Delaware is an equitable distribution state, not community property. The debt was incurred during the marriage, but without your knowledge or consent. We can argue you shouldn't be held responsible. Papers rustled on his end. But litigation is expensive and time-consuming. Even if we win, You're looking at legal fees. I watched a young couple exit the coffee shop, laughing about something on her phone. They looked like Emily and I used to look. Before. What are my options? Pay him off to make him go away, or let Emily deal with it herself. She's the one who signed the loan agreement. The third option is we countersue Emily for fraud and try to recoup everything through the divorce settlement, but that extends the timeline significantly. My promotion celebration champagne was probably still sitting on my desk, getting warm. The best day of my professional life, now permanently welded to the worst day of my personal life. I need to think about it. Don't think too long. Kowalski seems like the type who will follow through. Brennan paused. One more thing. Emily's lawyer called. She wants to schedule a deposition for next week. They're moving fast. Of course they were. Emily always moved fast when cornered. I drove home, my home now, with the locks changed, and found a FedEx envelope wedged in the doorframe. The return address showed a law office in Philadelphia. I tore it open, standing in the doorway. Notice of intent to file lawsuit. Dennis Michael Kowalski versus Emily Jane Reeves and Jacob William Reeves. The complaint laid it all out in clinical legal language. $28,000 principal plus $3,200 in accrued interest at 12% annually, plus attorney fees and court costs. Total demand, $34,750. I walked inside and dropped the papers on the kitchen counter. The house felt different now. Emily had lived here, breathed here, lied here for 14 months while I worked late and trusted completely. Every surface held a memory that had curdled into something toxic. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Jake Reeves? Speaking. This is Vanessa Price, Tyler's ex-wife. I'm sending those financial documents now, but I wanted to give you a heads up about something else. I grabbed a pen. I'm listening. My attorney did some digging after we talked. Tyler's been living in a luxury apartment in Center City, Philadelphia. Rent is $3,400 a month. He's also been driving a leased BMW 5 Series. That's about $650 a month. And get this. He took a trip to Turks and Caicos in February. Posted pictures all over social media. February. 2 months ago. While I was in Pennsylvania visiting suppliers, Emily had claimed she was going to a yoga retreat in Vermont. How much do you think he's spent total? I asked. My attorney estimates at least $60,000 over the past year, maybe more. And he claimed in our divorce proceedings that he was barely scraping by on freelance graphic design work. Vanessa's voice hardened. He told the judge he couldn't afford spousal support or property division. Said he was living in a friend's basement. The numbers didn't add up. Emily borrowed $28,000 from Dennis. Even if she'd maxed out her credit cards, which I'd need to check. Where did the rest come from? Vanessa, I need to ask you something. Did Tyler ever mention other women, besides Emily? Silence stretched across the line. He cheated on me twice during our marriage. That I know of. Her voice went quiet. Both times with women who had money. Tyler's always been good at finding people to take care of him. After we hung up, I pulled up our bank statements on my laptop. Emily had her own checking account. We'd kept separate finances except for the joint account we used for mortgage and utilities. I'd never had reason to look at her personal statements before. I logged into our shared email account, the one we used for household bills. Searched for her bank name. Found the automated monthly statements she'd been receiving for 4 years. The most recent statement showed a balance of $347. But the transaction history told a different story. Cash withdrawals. Dozens of them. $500 here, $800 there, $200 the week before Valentine's Day, all from ATMs in Philadelphia, near Tyler's apartment address. I added them up. Over the past 14 months, Emily had withdrawn $31,400 in cash from her personal account, plus the $28,000 from Dennis. $400 total. Almost exactly what Vanessa's attorney estimated Tyler had spent. My wife had drained her savings and borrowed from a colleague to finance another man's lifestyle while I worked 60-hour weeks to pay our mortgage. I opened a new spreadsheet and started documenting everything. Dates, amounts, locations. Brennan would need this. Vanessa's attorney would need this. And when Emily sat across from me in that deposition, I wanted every lie itemized and categorized. The doorbell rang at 7:23 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw Dennis Kowalski. He looked different than I'd imagined. Shorter, stockier, with thinning hair and glasses. He wore a polo shirt with the yoga studio logo. I opened the door, but left the chain engaged. "Mr. Reeves, we need to talk. Your lawyer already sent the lawsuit notice. I'm not here as a plaintiff. I'm here as someone who got screwed over by the same person you did." He shifted his weight. "Can I come in?" I considered it. Closed the door, unlatched the chain, opened it wider. Dennis stepped into my foyer and looked around like he was cataloging assets. Maybe he was. "I'm not paying Emily's debt," I said. "I know. Your lawyer made that clear." He rubbed his face. "Look, I'm not a wealthy guy. I teach meditation classes for $35 an hour. That $28,000 was my entire savings, money I'd been putting away for 15 years. The weight of it hit me differently hearing him say it out loud. This wasn't some faceless creditor. This was a man who'd trusted Emily the same way I had. "Why did you loan it to her?" Dennis walked to the window, looked out at the street. "She said your mother-in-law had cancer, needed experimental treatment not covered by insurance. She cried in my office after class one day, said you'd already taken out a second mortgage and maxed out your credit cards, but it still wasn't enough." He turned back to me. "She showed me medical bills, a treatment plan from some clinic in Mexico. My mother-in-law is dead, has been for 6 years. I know that now." His jaw tightened. "I called the clinic. It doesn't exist. The medical bills were fabricated. She probably made them on her computer." We stood there in my living room, two men who'd been expertly played by the same woman. "I have documentation," I said. "Bank statements showing where the money went. If you're willing to work with my attorney, we might be able to pursue Emily for fraud. Criminal fraud, not just civil." Dennis's eyes widened slightly. "You do that? She stole from both of us. She lied to both of us. And she did it to finance her affair." I picked up the FedEx envelope from the counter. "I'm not protecting her anymore. What do you need from me?" "Everything. The loan agreement, the emails where she asked for money, the fake medical bills. Every piece of evidence you have." He nodded slowly. "I'll send it all to your lawyer tomorrow." After Dennis left, I sat at the kitchen table with my spreadsheet and added a new column, criminal evidence. If Emily wanted to move fast with her deposition, fine. I'd move faster. My phone buzzed with an email from Vanessa. The subject line read, "Tyler's financial disclosures, confidential." I opened the attachment and started reading. The coffee shop 2 blocks from my office had become my default meeting spot. Neutral territory where I could maintain the careful separation between my professional life and the wreckage of my personal one. I arrived at 11:30 a.m. Thursday morning, ordered black coffee I didn't want, and waited. Vanessa Price walked in at 11:42. She looked different from her photo on LinkedIn. Sharper, more guarded. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, and she wore a navy suit that screamed attorney, even though she'd told me she worked in pharmaceutical sales. "Jake?" She extended her hand. Professional, controlled. "Thanks for meeting me." She ordered tea, then sat across from me with the careful posture of someone who'd learned not to show weakness. "I've been thinking about your situation since we talked. Tyler has a pattern." I waited. During our marriage, there were 3 women I knew about. Her voice stayed level, clinical. The first one was a paralegal at his firm, She paid for a ski trip to Aspen. The second was someone he met at a conference. She covered his hotel upgrades for 6 months. The third was a friend's wife. Jesus. He's good at playing the victim, the struggling professional, the guy who just needs a little help getting back on his feet. She stirred her tea methodically. He told me about his rough childhood on our second date, his father's gambling debts, his mother's medical bills. None of it was true. His parents retired to Scottsdale on a comfortable pension. I thought about Tyler staying in our guest room, eating our food, using the story about his difficult divorce to explain why he was temporarily broke. 3 weeks of lies while he slept with my wife. Your attorney mentioned deposing him next week, Vanessa said. My lawyer wants to coordinate. If we can establish a pattern of fraudulent behavior across multiple victims, it strengthens both our cases. What exactly is he trying to pull with your divorce? He filed a motion to reopen, claiming I hid assets during the settlement. It's completely fabricated. We had a straightforward 50-50 split. But he's alleging I had a secret inheritance that I didn't disclose. She pulled out her phone, showed me a legal document. He's asking for an additional $85,000. The number hit me wrong. Too specific. Where did he get that figure? That's what I can't figure out. There's no inheritance. My parents are alive and living on Social Security. But Tyler's lawyer filed detailed allegations about a trust fund from my grandmother. She scrolled through the document. They even named the bank, First National of Pennsylvania. My grandmother never had an account there. She kept her savings in a credit union in Ohio. My brain started connecting dots I didn't want to connect. Can I see that? She handed me her phone. I read through the legal filing, my coffee going cold. The document alleged Vanessa had received $85,000 from a trust fund administered by her grandmother's estate, deposited into First National of Pennsylvania on March 15th, 2 years ago. Vanessa, do you know if Emily has any connection to First National? Your wife? No, why would... She stopped. Wait. I pulled out my own phone, opened the photos I'd taken of our financial records, found what I was looking for. Emily opened a new savings account 14 months ago. First National of Pennsylvania. She told me it was for better interest rates. We stared at each other across the table. How much did she deposit? Vanessa asked quietly. I checked my notes. Initially, $31,400, but there were additional deposits over the following months. I scrolled through the transaction history I'd photographed. She withdrew $85,000 total over the past year. Vanessa's face went pale. He's using the exact amount. He knows Emily had that money because she gave it to him. Now he's claiming I had it, trying to extract it from me in the divorce. That son of a... I caught myself, breathed. He's double-dipping. Emily financed his lifestyle, and now he's trying to get you to pay him the same amount through fraudulent court filings. If I can't prove the inheritance doesn't exist, the judge might order me to pay. Her hand shook slightly as she picked up her tea. My lawyer said the burden of proof is on me to demonstrate I didn't receive the money. Tyler's banking on the fact that proving a negative is almost impossible. I thought about Attorney Brennan's advice to document everything. I have Emily's bank statements. They show the deposits and withdrawals. If we can demonstrate she had access to that exact amount and that she was involved with Tyler during that time period, it establishes the money came from her, not from me. Vanessa pulled out a notepad, started writing. My attorney needs to see those statements. Can you get copies to him? I'll have them sent today? She looked at me with something like gratitude mixed with exhausted recognition. Two people who'd been played by the same con. Tyler told me you were a workaholic, that you ignored Emily, that she was lonely. He made it sound like he was doing her a favor, being there for her. He told me he was going through a rough divorce, that he needed time to get back on his feet. We've been divorced for 8 months. The settlement was final. There was nothing rough about it. I gave him exactly half of everything we had, even though he'd been cheating throughout our marriage. She set down her tea with controlled force. He walked away with $127,000. Where did that money go, Jake? I thought about Tyler's lifestyle. The BMW, the expensive apartment, the vacations Emily had helped fund. He burned through it, probably in less than 6 months. So he moved on to Emily, and when her money started running out, he filed fraudulent court documents to squeeze more out of you. The pattern was clear now, ugly and deliberate. How many others do you think there are? Vanessa's expression hardened. My attorney is going to love this. Tyler's not just committing adultery, he's running a systematic fraud operation. If we can prove he knowingly filed false allegations about my inheritance while simultaneously receiving that exact amount from another source, that's criminal fraud, not just civil. Yes? She met my eyes. Are you prepared to go that route? Because once we start down that path, there's no walking it back. Tyler could face actual charges. I thought about Emily's face when I'd confronted her. The tears, the excuses, the way she'd tried to minimize it, to make it sound like a mistake rather than 14 months of calculated deception. I thought about Dennis Kowalski, who'd lost $28,000 based on fabricated medical bills about my dead mother-in-law. I'm prepared, I said. Vanessa nodded. Then we coordinate. My attorney, your attorney, and we bring in the prosecutor's office. We document every transaction, every lie, every fraudulent claim. We build a case that's airtight. What about Emily? What about her? She's complicit in this. She funded Tyler's lifestyle knowing he was married to you. She took out a loan under false pretenses. I stopped, the reality settling over me. She could face charges too. Vanessa's expression didn't change. That's between you and your attorney. But Jake? If she knowingly participated in Tyler's scheme to defraud me, if she helped him fabricate evidence about this fake inheritance, then yes. She's not just an affair partner. She's an accomplice. My phone buzzed. A text from Attorney Brennan. Emily's lawyer filed response. Requesting emergency hearing on temporary support. Claims she has no access to funds and needs immediate financial assistance. I showed Vanessa the message. She laughed, sharp and bitter. Of course she does. Let me guess. She'll claim she's destitute, that she needs money for basic living expenses. She has $31,400 in that First National account. Or she did. Check the current balance. I pulled up the banking app I'd been monitoring. The joint accounts were frozen, but I could still view the savings account Emily had opened in her name only. I logged into the bank's website using the credentials I'd found in her email. Current balance, $847.23. She burned through it all, I said. Over $30,000 in 14 months. On Tyler, on his apartment, his car, his lifestyle. Vanessa stood, gathering her things. My attorney will contact yours today. We'll need to move fast. Tyler's deposition is scheduled for Tuesday. If we can get your documentation integrated into our case before then, we can confront him with evidence he won't be expecting. What happens if he runs? Then we file charges and let the police find him. She paused at the door. Jake, I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry Emily did this. But I'm not sorry we're going to make them both pay for it. After she left, I sat alone with my cold coffee and thought about Emily's emergency hearing request. She wanted temporary support. She wanted me to fund her life while she'd spent over $60,000 financing Tyler's. I texted Attorney Brennan. Oppose the motion. I have documentation showing she depleted $31,400 in personal savings plus $28,000 loan from Dennis. She has access to funds. She just spent them all on her affair partner. His response came quickly. Perfect. Bring all documentation to my office at 3 p.m. We'll file our counter motion today. I paid for my coffee and walked back toward my office. the spring sunshine feeling wrong against the cold calculations settling into my bones. Emily had made her choices. Tyler had made his. Now they'd both learn what it cost to build a life on lies. The deposition took place on a gray Tuesday morning in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Tyler sat across from me, his lawyer, a nervous-looking woman named Julie Patterson, beside him. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Attorney Brennan laid out the documents methodically. Bank statements, wire transfers, the lease agreement for the Philadelphia apartment, credit card bills from restaurants I'd never heard of, hotels in cities I'd never visited. "Mr. Bennett," Brennan said, "can you explain how you afforded a $3,400 monthly apartment while claiming poverty in your divorce proceedings?" Tyler's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. Vanessa's attorney had coordinated perfectly. They'd already filed amended motions in her case, complete with every transaction I'd documented. Tyler crumbled within 40 minutes. Admitted Emily had been helping him financially. Claimed he didn't know about the loan from Dennis, though the timeline made that impossible. When confronted with his fraudulent inheritance allegations against Vanessa, he went silent. "My client needs a recess," Patterson said, her face pale. We never resumed. 2 hours later, Tyler's attorney called with a settlement offer. He'd withdraw all motions against Vanessa, surrender the BMW, and vacate the apartment. In exchange, we wouldn't pursue criminal charges. Vanessa rejected it. He doesn't get to walk away clean. The prosecutor's office agreed. Wire fraud, filing false court documents, conspiracy to commit fraud. Tyler was arrested on a Thursday afternoon at his graphic design freelance gig, let out in handcuffs while his co-workers watched. Emily's emergency support hearing happened the next week. She showed up in a conservative dress, her hair pulled back, playing the part of the wronged wife who'd made a mistake. Attorney Brennan destroyed that narrative in under 20 minutes. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Patricia Okafor, reviewed the evidence with an expression that grew progressively colder. The fabricated medical bills about my dead mother-in-law. The $28,000 loan obtained through fraud. The $31,400 in personal savings spent on another man. The cash withdrawals, the vacations, the apartment payments. "Mrs. Reeves," Judge Okafor said, "you're requesting temporary support from your husband while you depleted over $60,000 funding an extramarital affair?" Emily's lawyer tried to redirect. "Your Honor, my client's poor financial decisions don't negate her need for—" "They absolutely do." The judge's voice could have cut glass. Motion for temporary support denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering Mrs. Reeves to cooperate fully with the criminal investigation into Mr. Dennis Kowalski's fraud complaint. This court does not look kindly on parties who use the legal system to extract money from spouses they've systematically defrauded. Emily left the courthouse in tears. I felt nothing watching her go. The divorce finalized 6 months later. Emily got her car, her personal belongings, and her debt to Dennis Kowalski, which the court ruled was hers alone. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and my sanity. Dennis eventually recovered $18,000 through a settlement with Emily's parents, who paid it to avoid their daughter facing criminal charges. The remaining $10,000 became a judgment that would follow Emily for years. Tyler pleaded guilty to reduced charges: 1 count of wire fraud, 2 counts of filing false court documents. He got 18 months in federal prison and 5 years probation. Vanessa attended the sentencing. So did I. Emily avoided prison through a plea deal that required full restitution to Dennis and 200 hours of community service. Her yoga studio fired her when the local news covered the story. Last I heard, she was working retail in Pennsylvania, living with her parents, her reputation destroyed. I sold the house 8 months after the divorce finalized. Couldn't stand being in those rooms anymore, surrounded by ghosts of a marriage that had been a lie. Bought a condo downtown, closer to work. Started over. The promotion I'd earned that Tuesday afternoon led to another one 2 years later, vice president of operations. I threw myself into work the way I always had, but differently now. I understood the cost of blind trust, of assuming good intentions, of believing that love meant honesty. Kevin's wife, Lauren, tried setting me up with friends for a while. I went on a few dates, pleasant enough evenings that never went anywhere. Maybe they would eventually, maybe they wouldn't. I was okay either way. Vanessa and I stayed in touch. Occasional emails, coffee twice a year when she visited Wilmington for work. We'd been through something together, survived the same betrayal from different angles. There was comfort in that shared understanding, even if nothing romantic ever developed. On the 3-year anniversary of that Tuesday afternoon, I drove past the old house. New owners had painted the shutters blue, replaced Emily's hydrangeas with roses. It looked different enough that I could see it without the memories crushing me. I thought about the champagne bottle that had hit my office ceiling at 2:47 p.m., about the man I'd been who believed success at work meant success in life, who thought 10 years of 60-hour weeks would build something permanent. That man had been naive. But he hadn't been wrong to work hard, to build a career, to trust his wife. Emily had been wrong. Tyler had been wrong. They'd made choices that destroyed lives and landed them in courtrooms and prison cells. I'd made different choices, documented everything, fought back, refused to be a victim or an ATM for someone else's lies. The house disappeared in my rearview mirror. I drove toward my condo, toward my life, toward whatever came next. Some people believe that betrayal breaks you, that discovering your spouse's infidelity means you failed somehow, that you should have seen the signs or worked harder or been more present. Those people are wrong. Betrayal doesn't break you unless you let it. And seeing the signs isn't your job when someone's actively working to deceive you. Emily had been a professional liar. Tyler, a practiced con artist. They'd built their affair on a foundation of calculated fraud, not on any failure of mine. The real lesson wasn't about trust or marriage or even love. It was simpler and harder than that. Some people will take everything you offer and demand more. They'll smile while they're robbing you blind, cry when they're caught, and blame you for their choices. Your job isn't to fix them or understand them or give them another chance. Your job is to document everything, protect yourself, and walk away clean. I did exactly that. And 3 years later, driving through Wilmington on a spring afternoon, I finally understood what winning actually looked like. It looked like freedom.